Hey everybody, Wandering Pastor coming to you again with a concept that you may have been thinking a lot about lately, even if you haven't labeled it this way, and that is the concept of integrity. What is integrity, and why is it so important? Integrity would be like a structure actually fulfilling the, the picture it presents. Think of a chair that made out of wood, and you think it's a solid chair, and you go to sit on it, and it falls apart, and you realize it's been ruined by dry rot or by termites or something like that. And so it didn't have integrity. Construction materials need to have integrity. Otherwise, like if the foundation isn't made with integrity, the house crumbles, right? Well, we look for that, of course, in our people, especially our leaders as well, whether it's our political leaders or our spiritual leaders, our economic leaders, right? Our bosses, our fathers and mothers. We look for integrity in the positions of those who have authority, especially. And when they don't show it, when they show hypocrisy, the opposite of integrity, then it disturbs us, and it should, right? And so as we've seen things from like the Epstein list, and we know that there are people on it who are now, it seems like it's being covered up. And there are other people, like the House just voted to defeat a bill which would have exposed all of the sexual harassment claims against House members immediately when they come. And there might be reasons for that. There may be nuances or whatever, but it certainly seems as though there are people who don't walk with integrity in our nation's capital. Those politicians who start out on a relatively modest public servant's salary and they end up being multimillionaires because they have, seemingly, they have trading capacity in the stock market that is unrivaled by most normal people. And so you wonder, okay, so where does the integrity go, and why don't people walk with integrity? And integrity is something that God prizes highly and always has. And one of the passages or the examples I've been reading about that is found in the life of Joseph. Joseph is one of the characters listed way back in the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. And actually, his story goes from like Genesis 37 all the way through Genesis 50. And it starts as a 17-ish year old young man who had some dreams. And perhaps because he was just 17, he didn't realize when he told his brothers and his parents these dreams, which seemed to show that they would bow down to him, that they would not respond well. And so they didn't, and they sold him into slavery. That's a pretty dramatic step. They were going to kill him, but they decided, we don't want to get blood on our hands, so let's sell him as a slave. And so he becomes a slave in Potiphar's house. Potiphar was the captain of the Egyptian guard, and yet he prospered there. Why? Because God was with him. But in Potiphar's house, he was given great authority and great freedom and great influence, even though he was just a servant. In fact, he was put in charge of almost all of Potiphar's things except for Potiphar's wife. He was number 2 in the household behind Potiphar. And yet, it says Joseph was very handsome, this is Genesis 39, and well-built young man, and Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. "Come and sleep with me," she demanded. But Joseph refused. "Look," he told her, "my master trusts me with everything in this entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God." But she kept after him and kept after him. And one day he was in the house and no other servants were there. And she grabbed him and said, "Come to bed with me." And he ran away. He ran out. But in doing so, he left his outer cloak with her. And she determined that she was going to accuse him. "See, he tried to make sport of me. He tried to attack me. And this is what was left." And so Potiphar believed her, of course, and sent him to prison unjustly. He didn't do anything wrong. He walked with integrity, but he was sent to prison. And yet it says, again, God was with him. The Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. And in fact, the prison warden ended up putting Joseph in charge of the prison underneath himself. And things went well. Joseph made great decisions. Well, Joseph in prison met 2 people. He was able to interpret their dreams because God gave him the interpretation. And when they got out, those dreams came true, but they forgot about Joseph until Pharaoh asked various wise men to interpret a couple of dreams. And then one of the guys remembered, oh, I remember I was with Joseph, this guy, this Hebrew, who seems to have the spirit of the gods. And so he called, there was a young man in the prison with me who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each dream meant, and everything happened just as he said. And so Pharaoh called for him, and he said, I've heard that you have the spirit of the gods, and you can interpret dreams. And Joseph said, it is beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what the dreams mean and to put your mind at ease. And he did. And so Joseph interpreted the dreams, and the Pharaoh then said, he said, can we find anyone else like this man so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed these things, the meaning of these dreams to you, clearly no one else is intelligent or wise as you are in all my people, and so you, in all my court, and so you will be put in charge over all. Only I, sitting in the throne, will have a higher rank than yours. And so Joseph then walked the people of Egypt and the surrounding areas through this time of blessing and then this time of famine, because God was with him. But the point is, even when the chips were down, even when he was being mistreated, even when it seemed to be forgotten and the dreams that he had didn't seem to be anywhere near coming, he walked with integrity. He trusted God. And that's really what we should all be doing. Integrity is that important. Proverbs 10 verse 9 says, people who walk with integrity walk safely, but those who follow crooked paths will slip and fall. And, it reminded me of another guy in the Old Testament who walked with integrity, and that was a prophet named Daniel. Daniel was a man who was taken as a young man, again, from Israel, transported to Babylon when Babylon took over and invaded Israel. And he and a whole bunch of other people were taken against their will to Babylon to be trained to be Babylonian, essentially, to wipe out the nation of Israel. And yet, Daniel walked with integrity, and he walked faithfully with God. And one time, some of the other guys, as a result of that, he was given high rank. And yet, one time, some of the other administrators with him were not happy. They were jealous of him, and so they wanted to come up with a plan to get rid of him. And so they concluded, our only chance of finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in connection with the rules of his religion, his faith. It will be between him and his God. If we can't do something about that, use that against him, then we're out of luck. Well, they convinced the king to give orders for the next 30 days that any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except for you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions, because they knew that Daniel would pray. And sure enough, Daniel 6 verse 10 says, when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. And sure enough, they found out about it. They told the king. The king was bound. He had signed the law, and so he was thrown into prison. And the king actually said to him, Daniel, may the God whom you serve so consistently come to your rescue. And he did. So here's the thing. Here's Joseph and here's Daniel. The chips go against them. The circumstances turn against them, but they continue to walk in integrity, and God blesses them. And here's the deal. You and I are called to walk with integrity. Nobody else may notice. You may not get credit for it. In fact, your circumstances may go against you. It may be that people around you use your integrity against you, but you still need to walk in integrity, especially if you're a follower of Jesus Christ. In our day and age, we need leaders of integrity. We need people of integrity, people who will consistently follow the right thing, no matter what other people do. You can always say, no. You need to walk with integrity. So I want to encourage you to do that. So chew on that for a while, pray about that, kind of think about, am I living that way? Okay. I want to encourage you also this weekend on Sunday morning at 11:30, another podcast from wanderingpastor.com will drop. Now, you can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. There are various places you can find this, but it's under wanderingpastor.com. If you go to that website, the links are there, as the links to all my videos and everything are there. I encourage you to do that. Share it with your friends, and I hope that it encourages you in your faith to continue to walk in integrity, no matter what other people do. Okay? Wandering Pastor saying grace and peace to you. Thanks.